Hey everybody. So in today's video we're going to talk about why I chose Varanus acanthurus as my first monitor lizard and what makes them so awesome and such great pets. So this is Scales13. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let's begin. The reason I got my Ackie monitor is because I wanted to do something different. And I wanted an animal where, even though reptiles are not necessarily emotionally attached to us, I wanted something that was more interactive. I mean, I wanted an animal that I could have somewhat of a relationship with, rather than something I'm just keeping alive that just tolerates me around. And even though that is true for the vast majority of reptiles, Ackies seem to have this thing where they are so personable and they're such good pets. No, please don't, thank you. And what I wanted was, I knew I've always been interested in Varanus. You know, just from growing up and watching things about Komodo dragons and how cool those were, even though those things will rip you apart. And I've seen people with other large monitors like black throats, white throats, savannas. But the main thing to know when picking a monitor lizard, or any pet for that matter, is figuring out what pet is right for you. And what I mean by that is, you have to know your experience level, you have to know how much room you're willing to offer, how much money you're willing to spend. So let's first talk about space. I don't have a ton of space. I can't get something like a water monitor, just to go on a bit of an extreme, or an animal that needs an entire room, because I don't have that type of space. And with space being a factor, I know I didn't have the space for a savanna or a big monitor, and it wouldn't be fair for me to try to keep that thing in an apartment, you know? I don't want to be one of those guys who keeps like a tiger or like some type of endangered wild animal from Africa, or any other place for that matter, but you're missing the food in such a small space. It wouldn't be good for me, it wouldn't be good for the animal either, and I just didn't want to put either of us in a bad situation. And the thing is, Ackie monitors should be in an enclosure 4 by 2 by 3 at the smallest at a young age, and they'll do better in an enclosure that's 5 feet in length or 6 feet in length, while still having an enclosure that's at least 3 foot high and 3 foot wide, to allow for that foot of substrate that these animals require. Now that sounds like a lot from a beginner pet standpoint, but for monitor lizards, it's very relaxed, where with most monitors, let's say like bigger, stronger monitors like savannas, an 8-foot enclosure may be what a larger monitor needs as the smallest standard. And from even there, you may need a 10-foot long, maybe 5-foot wide enclosure, or you may just need to build something in your backyard. You might have to either have a super huge house for larger species, a separate building, or you may need to keep this animal outside, and you may need to live in a warm environment. Well, guys, I live in Jersey, and the thing is, I don't have the option to keep animals outside. And like I said, 1-bedroom apartment, don't have a house yet, so I couldn't do a larger monitor. The other thing is animal welfare in general. A lot of monitor lizards are wild caught, especially savanna monitors. And although price-wise, they only cost like $15 to get the animal, they come in riddled with parasites. They come in dehydrated, and there's a high chance of your animal dying. Now granted, if you look at it from a financial standpoint, oh, that animal didn't cost me a whole lot of money. But for me, since I'm a person who gets emotionally attached to his animals, that's a whole lot of grief. And if I take any animal into my care, I feel like it is 100% my responsibility to make sure that animal lives a long, happy, healthy life. I found that it was really awesome that there was an animal that didn't need such a large enclosure compared to other larger species of monitor lizards. Even black-headed monitors, which is still considered a dwarf monitor, are a larger species and require quite a bit more space than an Ackie monitor. Going back to price, Ackie monitors, they're 100% captive bred in the United States, which is awesome. You're getting a high quality animal, although they are expensive, anywhere from, let's say, $300 to $400 for a yellow Ackie, and sometimes up to $500 for proven breeder females and reds. Well, the thing is, although these guys may be a little bit more expensive with getting the supplies and enclosure needed than a beginner animal, they are much less expensive than other large monitor lizards because they need a smaller enclosure, cut, all back in the tank. Whew, thanks goodness. He's starting to get more bold, guys, so he's starting to kind of do his thing and want to explore more. But anyway, I'm gonna throw some food in here to keep him busy. Here you go. So yeah, so space was better, and also I wouldn't have to spend as much money on the initial setup for my animal. The other thing is you have to know what your level of keeping was and your experience level. Now, up to this point, I've kept leopard geckos. I've had a blue-tongued skink for about 3 years. So I knew I wasn't necessarily ready for a very large species of monitor, especially a sensitive one that needs very high humidity, very large enclosure, very specific diet. And I knew it was easier for me to get an animal that was an insectivore than an animal that eats meat, because I don't really have the access to super high quality meats. Now granted, you can always order mice and stuff like that online, but some animals, just off the top of the head, like some of the water monitors and such, will eat fish. And the thing is, I don't really trust the fish necessarily in my local grocery store. So with that being said, I wouldn't feel comfortable feeding that to my animal. However, I know I have a great supply of insects because I can get gut-loaded dubia roaches. I can get gut-loaded crickets. I can get superworms and mealworms and even breed them myself, so I constantly have food. So I knew this was something that was doable. And on top of that, it's easier to make a mistake with an Ackie and not get yourself injured than make a mistake with, let's say, a Nile monitor or a Savannah or something. And I'm not saying that to diss those animals in any type of way, for lack of a better way of saying it. But what I'm saying is, I don't feel like I was ready to take on a big responsibility with an animal like that when I just didn't know how to read a monitor lizard's body language yet. With Ackies, they're small. If I do make a mistake, I get bit or something like that, it's not that bad. Like, for example, as you guys seen in a lot of my videos, I hand feed Thunder a lot in order to get him used to me, approach me, trying to get him acclimated to my presence. And this is something I personally would not do with a larger monitor species because I just don't want to get nipped or injured, especially if the animal is not used to those type of things. Like, especially an Argus, because an Argus will see food from like 10 meters away and they come at you full force, and that's a big animal. And that's not to say the animal's bad. That's just how strong its food response is, because it's a big, strong predator that has to chase down food in the wild, and that's just what it's used to, chasing down and catching its prey that tends to be larger and quick, so it goes after it hard and fast. With these guys, they go after insects, and even though they'll charge you, and as you've seen in my last video where my Ackie goes crazy over crickets and dubia roaches, it's still not as bad where he can necessarily hurt me. And even though I have taken a nip once or twice on the fingers with him eating out of my hand, I've noticed he has very great control with that, where he'll nip, but he won't bite hard. The moment he knows what's in his mouth and that it's not a bug, he lets go right away. He's never bitten me out of being defensive in the small instances where I had to pick him up, let's say if he ran out of the enclosure. So with that being said, this was just a very easy animal for me to keep. So the relationship I have with my Ackie is awesome because he's bold, he approaches me, he does his own thing, but he's relatively easy to take care of. The other thing I didn't want to contribute to as well, going back to the price of other monitor lizards, let's just take Savannah monitors, because it's well known that Savannah monitors are almost 100% wild caught. And the thing is, I didn't want to contribute to the practice of taking these animals out of the wild, where over 90% of these animals, probably higher, do not make it in captivity within the first year. I didn't want to be one of those guys who making that issue worse by buying into that industry. So by me buying Ackies, it keeps the breeders in business. So that way they keep breeding these animals, and we constantly keep having a captive supply of Ackie monitors. And the awesome part about doing that is we'll keep our captive population, because if we don't keep our captive population, people may try to smuggle them out of Australia again. We'll have wild caught specimens, and we don't want Ackie monitors to turn back into an animal that's being extorted as much as the Savannah monitor. So guys, those are my main reasons for getting an Ackie. Number 1, cost. Number 2, experience. And number 3, the amount of space that I can provide this animal to explore in an enclosure. So guys, with all that being said, I think Ackie monitors are a great choice for a first monitor lizard. You have a couple other groups of dwarf monitor lizards that also make great pets and do not need a ton of space. But since these guys were the first animal I saw, and the fact that they were the most popular, I felt that these guys had more information about them. There's Varanus story, there's the pygmy mulga, there's plenty of other small dwarf monitor lizards that also make great pets and don't need a ton of space compared to the larger species of monitor lizards. Something like an Ackie that might make you better prepared. Whoa. And we may need to cut. Yeah, we're gonna have to cut. And we're back on. I love it when he walks back in the enclosure. That's a good thing. He really is starting to see the enclosure as his territory and his place of safety, which is why I want to maximize this space as much as possible. Once we get the house, he's going to get a 6x3x3 enclosure. I keep telling you guys because I want you to hold me to it. I want you guys to ask, like, hey, where's the 6x3x3 enclosure? You said you're going to give him a larger space, and I 100% intend to. I'm just waiting until I have enough space for it, but I am going to do a overhaul of his enclosure soon, where Thunder here gets a dig box and a bunch of other cool stuff. So look out for that video, guys. That's coming next. I'm just waiting until I have all the different supplies that I need first before I get this going. So there you have it, guys. That's why I decided to get an Ackie. I have not been disappointed at all since I got my Ackie. He's a wonderful pet, and he makes me happy, and I literally enjoy caring for this animal every day. He's so bold. Look at this. Please don't run out of the enclosure. So anyway, guys, go that way. Yeah, go that way. There you go. Whoa. And did he get it? Yep, he got it. Awesome. Haha, distract him with food. So anyway, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, I just did a collab with Professor Herb and DBCB Exotics on Saturday on Twitch. So they have an awesome podcast where they talk to different hobbyists and breeders of the reptile community. I think it's really cool if you guys just want to listen in, especially if you want to learn about species that you've never kept before and you're thinking about getting in the future. So I'll leave a link to the Twitch account in my description. And remember to check out my Instagram too. It's Scales13. So that basically explains why I got my buddy Thunder here, why I chose Varanus acanthurus as my first monitor lizard. So guys, if you are thinking about getting an Ackie monitor in the future as your first monitor lizard and you're in between species, I highly recommend this animal. Just please keep in mind that outside of food, the majority of the stuff that you want to get to take care of your Ackie monitor is not at the pet store. You need to find a place that's going to give you a wood or a PVC enclosure with a ceiling top on it to hold in your heat and humidity. You're going to need to use floodlights to give you that nice wide beam so the animal can warm up its body. You're going to need to learn a bunch of different stuff about this animal that they don't have in those little care sheets that they give you at the common pet shops. Because this animal is not a common animal, and it's not one of the animals that they sell at those places. You don't find Ackie monitors at Petco and PetSmart, which is why they don't provide you the things they need, because it's not something that they're familiar with. All right, guys. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys like this video, and peace.